taking favorites? Yep. Anybody have a favorite?
Right next door.
Lead me to Calvary? Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, I know it. And we'll do the King of my life, I crown thee now. Thine shall the glory be. Lest I forget thy thorn crown brow, lead me to Calvary. Lest I forget Gethsemane, lest I forget thine agony, lest I forget my love for me, lead me to Calvary. May I be willing, Lord, to bear daily my cross for thee, even thy cup of grief to share, lay thou down for me. Lest I forget Gethsemane, lest I forget mine agony, lest I forget thy love for me, lead me to Calvary. I have a favorite, 294. This was my daughter's favorite when she was a kid. 294, Power in the Blood. Would you be free from the burden of sin? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you or evil the victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. There's so few of us. I want everybody to sing as loud as you can. Third verse. Would you do service for Jesus your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily his praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Do we have everybody in here yet? Not Rick. Okay. Anybody else have a favorite? 524. I hope it's one I know. Martha Jean can play anything. Oh, yes. This is a good one, too. 'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise, just to know thus saith the Lord. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I've proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. I'm so glad I learned to trust thee, precious Jesus, Savior, friend, and I know that thou that everybody, Rick? That's it. Okay. Thank you.
There's a movie I hear a lot about. Haven't watched it, probably won't, but people keep telling me about. There's a movie series called The Chosen Few, and as I walked up here, I thought, this is The Chosen Few right here. So glad that you stayed after lunch, and I am very confident you're going to be blessed by Pastor Harpe's testimony and his ministry this afternoon. Let's just begin with prayer. Father in heaven, again on your beautiful Sabbath day and in your church, your people are your church. We've stayed after lunch here to hear more of your word, to hear more from your speaker. And Lord, I just pray that you bless him, you give him the words to speak, the words that you want us to hear and know, and that will make a difference in our lives as we go forward from this place. Be with us now. We ask all this now in the name of Jesus. Amen. Pastor Harpe.
Well, good afternoon. And I want to thank the cooks who have filled my belly. And I was a little sad that I couldn't get any more because I knew I had to stand before you. Excuse me. And forgive me, I changed a bit so I could be a little more comfortable. Changed my shoes because I was standing in them all day. So I could be a little more comfortable. Hope you're okay with that. The slide says the miracle and the blessing. I'll start with this, and then we'll change presentations, Pastor, to the one for this afternoon. Okay, let's get it. Yeah, it should be working now. You see this vehicle here? I had this car for 5 years, and I used it to travel all over South Central Territory. And actually, I traded up. I bought a Hyundai. He said, wait a minute, you went from an Audi to a, yes. And when I look at my maintenance bills, I'm so thankful. But I had a warranty on that car, and that is the reason that I had it, because there was no way I could pay everything that car cost. Before I got rid of it, a year before I sold it, it was $5,000 in repairs, and I only had to pay $300. That was the deductible for the warranty. CarMax has a very good warranty if you get the top one. And but that's not a part of this story. Anyway, I drove this car, and I was in a little town called Jackson, Tennessee, and headed, after we finished something like this, finished that Sabbath afternoon, and Huntsville was 2 hours, maybe 2 hours and 10 minutes from that location. So we drove home. Wife was with me, and I started hearing something in my wheel well, something like a sprinkling. And, like if you drive over gravel and it maybe gets stuck in your wheel and it pops up and you hear that in your wheel well, but it was no gravel. When I looked in my rearview mirror, I was on the regular road. and I said, what is that? And then the thought came and I said, is that my tire? So we made it back home safely, and the next morning I was to drive to Nashville, which is an hour and 45 minutes from Huntsville, where we lived. My wife was working at Oakwood. She was doing grant writing there, and I was at the conference office there in Nashville. So the next morning it was pouring rain. So I drove the hour and 45 minutes in the rain, and when I pulled into the conference office parking lot and backed in, I pulled in. when I got ready to get out of the car, I was strongly impressed. Look at your front tire. And when I opened the door and got out, at the moment that I stepped out and looked down, the tire deflated. Just like that. It did not deflate until I had eyes on it. I said, oh my goodness. So it was pouring raining, so I called the service. I say, I'm paying for it. Let them come in and change it in the rain, And so the guy took the tire off, and, prayer still works. We talked about that last night. And this is what we saw on part of the tire. Yeah. And I got a couple more to show you. Now, this is the inside of the tire. You couldn't see that from the outside, the outer rim. On the outer rim, it looked like the tire had fair, good tread on it, because I pay attention to that. I'd have the guys check my tires, so, get, if it's time to change them and all that. And here is the one that really gets you. This is going around the tire, looking at, and so at that moment, I recognized that a miracle had happened. I told the guy who took the tire off, I said, God just saved my life. I said, you know where I came? I was in Jackson, Tennessee yesterday and just drove from Huntsville, and will you look at this? And I just kept going on, and the guy said, yeah. He was, I didn't care. I remember one time, and nobody else got this part of the story, I'm adding to this. Years before that, I had a little BMW. And I was driving on the freeway in Huntsville, and I was accelerating, and the car was slowing down. I was putting my foot to the floor, and that little thing used to fly. And it's like something was in front of the car pushing it, slowing it down. And so I couldn't figure out what was going on, so I just pulled over, got off onto the shoulder, and when I got out and walked around, the tire was completely blown off. I knelt down in the middle of the highway, not in the middle of the highway, but on the shoulder, and put my hands up and said, thank you, Jesus. So when this happened, I looked at that and I said what I said, and the only thing that I could come up with, and this is just spiritual imagination, is that, first of all, God said it wasn't his time or her time to go. Amen. And he dispatched an angel. Said, I want you to go down there and become a tire. Get my servant from Jackson to Huntsville, take him in the rain to Nashville, and then don't release yourself until I say, or whoever said from glory, because that's where it came from, look at your tire. And don't release until he actually looks at the tire and see it deflate. I was totally enamored at God. Because there's been many times in my life that he saved our lives. We used to work with youth. We got broadsided, and the car did a 360 in the middle of the intersection. Somebody hit us, they ran through the red light, and we walked away from that. We were in a Volkswagen Rabbit. Anybody remember those Volkswagen Rabbits? I had a diesel. Pastor, I hate that car got totaled. That thing used to give me good gas mileage. A lady and her husband got on the highway facing the wrong direction at night. They had retired and had been drinking. And I was going around a right curve, and the headlights always look like they're on your side if you're going around a right curve at night. And when the road straightened up, these headlights were right in front of me. And next thing I know, I said, oh God, and I turned just a little bit this way. The car hit us, bounced off, big Chevy, about 70-something Chevrolet, bounced off into the median. My car was embedded almost into the highway right there. People came from everywhere. And there was a man had been chasing that lady, trying to let her know that she was on the wrong side of the highway. And then it seemed like the ambulance showed up to, Ohio's, I grew up in Ohio, the state troopers don't play. They came and they saw everything. When the paramedics got there, they looked at my car, and the whole driver's side was just demolished, And I turned this way because my wife was on this side. I was trying to take most of the impact. And when I said, oh, God, there's another angel, I'm sure. And the reason, I'm going to tell you why. And so when they looked at us, the paramedics did this. They looked at the car, and they looked at us. We're standing up. They looked at the car. Next thing I know, my feet was in the air. My neck they were strapping stuff around us, and they put us straight in the ambulance and took us to the hospital. They said, something got to be wrong with y'all. And so took us, they checked us out. We were nothing wrong, just sore, from this, that, and the other. And there was myself, my wife, we had 2 young people in the back. We were going to a youth event. And the young man was a non-Adventist, and he was getting interested in the church. See what the devil does? Yeah, he was getting interested in the church. The young lady was with us. She was a member of the church, so we were just taking them. And when we were there, and I told him, I said, you all know what just happened, right? God just saved our lives because none of us were wearing seat belts. Yeah. I'm not proud of that, but I know who became my seatbelt. Back to this story. I'm talking too much. So when this happened, that day I was supposed to meet a gentleman who wanted to donate property to the church. He was a non-Adventist, and he had heard about our church. And so he was kind of interested, so he called our office, and I set an appointment with him. He was about maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half east of Nashville. So I had to call him and cancel. I said, sir, I'm so sorry. I had a situation with my car, my tire, it just exploded on me. I said, Lord, save my life. I said, I just going on. And I said, so I have to reschedule. He said, sure, no problem. So I was on the internet when I was talking to him looking for tires. And he called me back. And he said, I was thoroughly impressed by your testimony about God saving your life. And he said, just kind of explain what happened. I told him what happened. And he said, I'd like to buy you 2 tires. I said, excuse me? I said, what did I say? What did I say? Oh, okay. That's not what I said, but what do you think I said? I'll get to that. You know us, we got a little pride. Yes. Come on. Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you. Really appreciate it. No, I wasn't good, yeah. And so I said, we're good. We take, I'm a stranger. I don't know, who this is. And so he said these words. He said, would you refuse a blessing from God? I was, shut this preacher right up. Just nothing else could come out, but, And I said, well, sir, I don't, thank you. He said, yeah. He said, you get him and I'll take care of it. So either we hung up and he called me back or we kept talking. And the next thing he said, you do a lot of traveling, don't you? And I told him, I cover 5 states and do this quite a bit, and, all the time, almost every other weekend or so. And he said, well, you probably need 4 tires. Now, there's a text that says the Lord will grant you the desires of your heart. That's true? Because the desire that was in my heart when it's time to replace tires is to buy 4. And you know why? Because then you can rotate them on a regular basis and keep up with all that, and you get the little warranty they give you and all of that. But in our budget at the time, we only had the money for 2. The 4 tires that he promised It's $1,000. And on the strength of that, I told my wife, I said, you write out a check right now for $200. $100 tithe, and $100 offering. And the man hadn't given me the money yet. But because of the power of the moment, I knew God was speaking, and so I stepped out on faith and said, okay, just write that check so we can put that, When I finally went to see the man gave me the check, and when I went there, I didn't go there like this. I went there to deal with what he was dealing with, and that was the property that he was hoping that he could possibly donate or get, or be some kind of partnership where maybe they could develop a healthy type living center or something like that, And but anyway, when I got ready to leave, he said, "Wait a minute, I promised you a check," and he gave me the check, and I drove off on the new tires that I bought. And he, gave us the money back in essence, When God says, trust me, he means that. Following this, the blessed tires is what I call them. They wore out, my sister. They wore out. I drove them all around South Central, everywhere, and they wore out. And so after they wore out, what did I do? Well, what was I looking for? Another. Now, see, by this time, we had saved up the $1,000 to replace the tires, because that's what you do when you are budgeting. Cars will fail, tires will go. All this stuff happens. It's not like this is an emergency. You're supposed to put money away for brake jobs and all these kind of things, because these are things that are normal wear and tear. And sometimes they may go a little sooner, but you have something set aside so that you can deal with that. So we had put the next 1,000 away. And so now it was time to replace the blessed tires. And self said, Lord, is there another set of blessed tires? I know we got the money, Elder, but is there another? And I know God laughs at us. It really does. And so, I quit that. I knew it was just time to schedule and get the tires. But little did we know, about a week or two later, a check came in the mail for another $1,000. Now, I know I sound like one of them prosperity people, but that's true. It came. And I was scratching my head, so what? And then when I saw who it was from, it was my best friend who's served in the military, and he's out because of had health issues, Crohn's disease, and that. So he got honorably discharged because of that, and he's been going back and forth to the hospital and all that kind of stuff, and now it's kind of it's being controlled, and so I fussed at him. My wife fussed at him. What are you doing? You need this more than we need this. And he said, I told the Lord that when Michael and Selita were in school, and if there was anything at any time that I could do for them, I wanted to do it. And he was just impressed to write a check for $1,000 and put it in the mail. And so he shut us up. We had to tell him thank you. But this is where God knows our future. And he knows all about us. He knew us when we were in our mom's wombs. Knew what we could be with his power on us. Little did we know that my wife's brother was going to die. And we needed travel money. And that's what the $1,000 came in handy for. We had new tires and travel money. So when you trust God, he's got your front, he's got your side, he's got everything. Pastor, we can switch over. You can come out of that presentation. Well, let me do it real quick. Pause. Yep, we've been learning that stewardship is first and foremost about our relationship with God. Of course, generosity reset, and here we are. Faith, finances, and oops, wrong church. I put the other one. Oh, I hope this isn't the wrong one. This isn't the wrong presentation. Oh, it is. Yeah, I think this is the wrong. You're so wrong about for that. Well, I may have to skip some slides. Yeah, something happened. Well, anyway, we talked about the T's. We were at treasure, his treasure, and the practical side, what to do with what's left, how to manage what's left. And so it's God and money part 2. Yeah, that's what we're supposed to be. Get ready, be ready, stay ready. Why? Because he is coming. The Lord is coming. And just as important as Jesus saying, watch the signs of his coming, watch what's going on around us, he also said this. And he called his 10 servants and delivered them what? And said unto them what? Occupy until I come. Manage life. And so while we are on this journey, looking for him to come, preparing, going out, winning souls for him in his name, and excited about the fact that one day he's coming and all this trial and tribulation will be over, we still have to manage life. Yeah, there are going to be things that happen because we may die before he comes. And so what happens in life? We got to plan for retirement. Your kids, sometimes they have to go to college. How you got to save for that. So what do we do in managing for life? Oops, my budget is busted again. Yeah, I know this is the wrong presentation. But anyways, same principles. Anybody ever heard of this lady, Mrs. Osceola McCarty? Yes, well, she donated $150,000 to the University of Southern Mississippi from her life savings to help struggling students. We'll come back to this. So CNBC Select reviews key findings from Mind Over Money survey by Capital One and the Decision Lab done in December 29, 2022. 77% of Americans report feeling anxious about their financial situation. 58% feel that finances control their lives, and 52% have difficulty controlling their money-related worries. Okay, yeah, this is part right. So this is that long list of things that you wouldn't have been able to see. Healthcare cost, too much debt, lack of money, low wages, college expenses, cost of owning or renting a home, high cost of living, inflation, retirement savings, taxes, unemployment, Social Security, lack of savings. And so that's the list. Why do people normally have money problems? I'm asking you. Why do people normally have money problems?
They don't earn enough.
Okay. They don't earn enough.
They spend.
Huh? Spending. Spend more, yeah, bills, spend more than they earn, don't earn enough. All right, yeah, you saw that in one of the lists up there. Right. So the following are three main reasons why people have money problems, and likely in the following frequency. And some of the things that you're going to see, you said. Number one is what? Yeah, many couples are financially illiterate. That doesn't mean that they're dumb. It just means when it comes to money management principles from the Bible, they just hadn't been taught that. There's hope. It would be nice if you could learn that at most schools or universities. As a matter of fact, it would be good if some schools have picked this up. But it's very interesting. They teach us everything else except how to manage money. Number two, greed and selfishness. They live beyond their means. Somebody said that. They live beyond their means. They are not willing to what? Live in, drive, or wear what they can really afford. Many of these people also feel they are just too poor to tithe. Consequently, they live their whole lives, or they live their lives without God's promised wisdom and blessing. A serious tragedy, illness without adequate insurance, being abandoned by a spendthrift marriage partner, a natural disaster, and oh Lord, have there been many of those natural disasters. A major financial loss not of your own doing. We've been affected by that one there. Enough about the problems. What can we do to reset, restore, refresh restore our finances, have an economic game change? I don't know what happened here. This got all conflated and configurated. I guess it was because it was 4 in the morning. I don't know. Anyway, learn all you can about money management and practice what applies to your family situation. Read books, attend seminars, talk with those who know what's going on. This is very serious because if it's not being readily shared, then you need to go after it. Because this is life and death here. This is like drinking water when the well is way away, but you got to get to it. Pray for God's wisdom and blessing. Ask God to transform our hearts from selfishness to love. When we become unselfish, we are ready for heaven. And so, yeah, this is something happened because I changed all of this. I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, have a written spending plan. What is that? Well, a will is part of it, but a written spending plan? Yeah, it's the B word, the word we hate. I feel constrained if I'm on a budget, so don't say budget. Just call it a written spending plan. That sounds better. A written plan, spending, of course, is the household budget, and it holds you accountable. Most people go into debt because their outgo is more than their income. Many of us have no idea what we're spending. And some people get into the line and they have the debit card and they swipe and the D word comes up. What is that D word? Yeah. Now that's not the time to find out that you don't have any money. Before you spend, before you swipe, you should either go online or if you have, it's on my phone, and I say, wait a minute, let me see if I'm in budget here. So I'll know how much. I know about how much I'm supposed to spend, but let me see if I have a little over, just in case I say a little something extra. And if you don't have it, you don't have it. There's no money tree to go to get more. Now, none of us were on the highway, and this was just on the news. Anybody heard what was on the news?
Money was flying out of the truck and people
That's right.
running into people, killing people, trying to get them.
Well, yeah, I didn't hear that part, but I did hear that many people scurried to collect money, picking up $2,000 here, $1,800 there. A young man went to his account It was a family account. All their names were on there, joint. And he took $200,000 out in cash and drove down the highway throwing the money out the car.
He was throwing it?
Yes, just throwing it out. And I wasn't anywhere near, I'm just kidding. Now, some people did the right thing. What should we do with this money? The family said that if anybody could just bring some of that back, we would be appreciative. And then, of course, the tip is if you got all these people's names on your account, have it set up so at least 2 or 3 of them have to sign for it. So if somebody gets the bright idea that I'm mad with my family, I'll fix you. I don't know what his motive was, but they said it was nothing that legally that the family could do because his name was on the account. That the what now? No, I don't. I know there's going to be a follow-up to that story, so I'm going to just wait for that. But that was something. But people were scurrying around. Some people, they showed this one guy, it was nighttime. He was out there seeing if there were any remnants left. When I grew up in Cleveland, there was some people, the older generation, didn't trust banks. So they put money in the mattresses, they put the money in the walls of the house and all kind of places. And see, now the banks will guarantee up to $250,000. You remember when the bank was bad there a couple of weeks ago, they were only supposed to guarantee the $250,000, but the president, made it available so that the people who had accounts, not those who were invested into a stock or something, but people who had money in the account, even if they had over $1 million, they guaranteed it so they wouldn't lose it. Now that was a huge, huge blessing. They scrambled to make that happen, but it was 2 banks that we heard of, but it was actually 3. Because one bank failed, but they didn't mention the name of that one till later, and then the other 2 collided, and then, we kind of have a little bit of a mushroom, but they certainly shored all of that up. Bottom line is, keeping it in the mattress or any place else other than a safe place is not a good idea. But they were tearing down these houses on the west side of Cleveland, and the wrecking ball hit this house, and money went flying everywhere because somebody had stuffed it into the walls, and so we need to create a budget. This sucks. Study your receipts. You're going to see that on the video I'm going to show, so I'm going to speed up to the video now. And it's called Stupid Money, and these are on our YouTube page. They're 30 minutes, 27 minutes in length. We're only going to watch like 3 minutes because don't have time to show the whole thing. But this is available to you for free. There are, great money management tools, Ramsey, Total Money Makeover, the kit he used to give out, and then there's a young man in the Allegheny East Conference, pastor, who developed a money management system, and it's comparable in price to Ramsey. But if you want to know some of these tips, it is for free. Yeah, right there. And so...
Welcome to Stupid Money. Not that money is stupid. Most of us would love to have more of it, but sometimes we make stupid decisions with it. But you don't have to. This is the show that unpacks how to stop making stupid decisions so you can be smarter with your money and have a happier, fulfilled life. Join us today as we tackle budgets.
We got about maybe 2 minutes, and then we're going to come out of this. It's called Stupid Money because the stupid things people do with money.
If I would have had a budget or committed to a financial plan, I wouldn't have wasted so much money on that.
That's John Matthews, former stewardship
That
director.
was the key point for
That was a key point. I've never forgotten it. Of course, these remind me.
I bet they do. Vivian, what is a budget?
Well, a budget is, like John said, a plan, but it's a written plan that manages your finances.
So good old-fashioned pen and paper?
Pen and paper, or you can go to a computer. You know, there are apps. There are lots of ways to do a budget. Even your bank, you know, they have ways that you can go online and just do your budget. Simple.
Yeah, we'd like to even walk you through a budget.
Oh, will you?
Right in front of us. Here, they put it up on the screen. And Vivian's going to walk us through this thing.
Yeah, a monthly budget. But before you get started with your budget, Diana, you must begin first with figuring out what your expenses are. And
How do I do that?
How best to
Here's
do
the key
that
point.
is to get your receipts, keep your receipts for 1 month.
Keep
for
your
30
receipts
days.
for 1 month.
Okay, I can
And
do that.
you can do that. Put those receipts maybe in a shoebox or in envelopes, whatever. But you're going to be able to see exactly where you're spending your money. And there are going to be some surprises. You're going to be real surprises how you're and do it with your credit cards as well as your cash. So you want to see how you're spending your money. And after you do that, then you're going to go and you're going to put that information into a written budget. You're going to put everything down, and then you're going to be able to see where your money's going. You're going to put them into 2 different categories.
Got it.
What's the first thing we're going to do?
The first thing you're going to do, though, is you're going to look at your income, because you got to know if I'm making enough money to afford all this stuff, or what am I actually living on. So you're going to look at your income, and your income is going to be, you know, of course, what you're making. But do you take home all that money you're making?
I don't, unfortunately.
No, you don't. Some of it you got to give to Uncle Sam, you know, and to other places.
Right.
So after all of that is taken out, that's called your net spendable income, the money that you can actually spend.
Have you heard of that text, Matthew 6:33?
I have, but seek ye first.
Seek ye first. How does that work with a budget?
With the budget, tithe. Are you going to give back to God? So first off, you're going to give back to God. And so seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. After you return back to God, that first 10%, the rest of it he's going to take care of.
So what is this row of numbers right here?
This row of numbers he's speaking of is talking about the various percentages that you're going to allocate to the various expenses.
So this is a budget based on percentages.
It's a budget based on percentages.
But if I don't have enough money to fund all these at that level, what do I do?
You have 2 levels of expenses: fixed expenses, which is what? House payments,
Okay.
your mortgage,
Utilities.
and then your not your utilities. Those are variable because they change from time to time. So from your fixed expenses, you're going to put in those numbers, and then your variables are the expenses that will change. That's where you can make changes if you don't have enough money.
So Vivian, how long is this type of budget going to take me?
It's only going to take you about an hour to an hour and a half to put this information in, John.
Now, what do you do for a living? You're an accountant, right?
I'm an accountant.
I'm a preacher. Is that because I can download it, or can I come to your office and say, will you help me with this?
Yes, John. I will help anyone because this is so important. So yes, you can download it, but it will only take you about an hour and a half, because you've already done the pre-work. You've put those receipts together, so you have all that done. So you've already done the pre-work.
It's all input at this point.
So how often should I look at this?
You should look at this at the end of each month, because you want to know if you're right on track with what you've already planned. You know, you've set your plan, this is what I want to do, but at the end of the month, you need to compare to
So
see
it's
if you're
no
really
good
doing
if I
it.
do it once and don't check in.
No, it's no good to just put it in and not, look at it, because you got to
Right.
see if you're on track. Because sometimes we see those fancy things we want to buy, but if you don't have it in the budget, you shouldn't buy it.
In light of those fancy things, how much should I save?
You should save. That's a good question, because it's
another
very
critical
important
point.
to save. You should
Saving.
give back to God first, and then pay yourself first. 10 to 15%. Do you think that's possible?
I think it's absolutely possible.
I believe it is also. 10 to 15% should be your savings. Now, if you can't do that, some of that is paying off credit card debts. So you're going to put a percentage toward that. You're going to put a percentage towards just saving, a percentage toward retirement. So that's all included in that. So if you don't have enough for all of that right now, you make sure you make certain that you do it later.
Diana, if you want this, go to our website. You can download it.
And what's that?
nadstewardship.org.
And that's our
NADstewardship.org.
website. You can go to that
and download this particular document. As a matter of fact, I'm going to send it to the pastor. I'm going to send him a selection of things that he can send to you, even a PDF of this presentation if we don't get through the end of it. So you'll have this, or you can go to our website, Funding Hope and Wholeness. You can go to nadstewardship.org, which you just saw, and up there, you can't read it from here, but where I circle it, it says Stupid Money TV. Well, if you click on that, it's going to take you to this page, and then up there it says Resources. When you click on Resources, it's going to take you to this page where it says Monthly Budget Spending Plan, Sample Worksheet. You can click on that and just download it. So you can do this tonight. So get organized, develop a budget, have a written spending plan. Spend less than you earn, determined to live within your means. This is a critical one. Here's the Bible backup for this. There is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man or woman does what? What did we say about a person the Bible calls foolish or a fool? Bible definition for a fool is one who does not believe in God. And so what the text is saying is that there is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man or person who doesn't believe in God spendeth it up. Don't spend up your funds or the funds God has placed in your care to manage. The Bible is clear on this management part, especially when it says count the cost. Yeah, how do you go and do something, build something, and you don't count the cost? How do you go to the store and spend money and you don't count the cost? That's a Bible principle for building and everything else, but that could be applied to everything we do. Before you spend, count the cost. Okay, yeah, no, I can't, this is the wrong one. So save a little every pay period. Start with $50 and not just for retirement. Open a savings account. I'm going to zoom by this. And you can do that with $50 or $100 or whatever and do it in a different bank. That way you won't be tempted to use the money in the account that you already have. Even if you save, put it in a different bank so it's not easily accessible to you. Yes. By the way, as she's doing, you can ask a question. You can ask something about this morning, anything, because that's what this is. I may not finish this presentation, but if you have questions in your mind or in your heart, just let's get it.
Okay, I'm just looking at myself. First of all, I have two questions. In retirement, when you retire, you want a fixed income. And that
Right.
income is not increasing. And the longer you live, you still have the same amount of money that's coming in.
Yeah, it doesn't catch up to the cost of living. Right.
The cost of living. That's one thing I just want to know about that. And then the other question is, speaking for myself, at one time, it was two incomes, and my husband passed. So I was down to one income, and a child, and the same amount of bills, and, well, people have changed now, but if it wasn't for the church people, I don't know what I would have did, because my kid was in church school. I believe in church education.
Yeah,
Christian education.
absolutely. Oh, Pastor, I'm sorry. I'm sitting on the end of the pew here. Let me get up. I got too comfortable.
Coming up with the money for church school and all this stuff, and I made the lesser of the money. My husband was the main breadwinner. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but what I did was I got a shoebox. I've heard about it. I actually literally got a shoebox, bought some envelopes, and went January, February, put little dividers in the shoebox, and wrote out all my bills for the month. And I made it. I made it. people came up to me, one lady said, we don't have any kids, and she said, we've been looking for somebody to help out in church school, me and my husband. She says, well, we've been looking at you, and we decided we're gonna pay for your daughter.
Wow.
You know, and they did until they had their kid. By that time, I was able to manage.
Right, right.
Which was a couple of years. But I just, in prayer, I was constantly in prayer, and these things start just, everything started happening.
Right.
But that shoebox worked for me. I literally had a shoebox. And and that's before all the computer stuff was out.
Right, right.
Another thing, as being retired now, you're not, everything's going up, and I'm still having the same amount. I also wanted to know about, when I retired, it was a lump sum. I paid 15%. We were discussing this when you were doing that this morning. We were told, well, I was told, 10% tithe, 5% offering. Now, so that's what I did. I took 15% out of my money and paid the 5% offering, the 10% tithe. Now, after that, what are you responsible for, or what should you do? You're living on this fixed income, so if you can enlighten me.
Well, let me see if I can answer this. Well, first of all, I'm just a preacher, financial money manager with a certified, it's the one to help you with your money. But I can just give some tips as we have been doing. First of all, when you did the shoebox thing, you were taking a approach that, hey, I've got to get a handle on my financial situation.
Yeah, because
So
I
you.
went to an attorney, and the attorney told me, file bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, that was not
Yeah,
an option.
that was a choice that you didn't want to make.
Right.
You could have, but you wanted to go another way, which was good. So the point I'm actually making from your testimony is that you got serious about your finances. And because the option was bankruptcy, you said, no, I'm not doing that. So that meant that you went through the trouble. You bought envelopes, you went through all of that, and I earmarked what you could do, and then you began to swim a little. I'm coming to retirement last. I want to say this. When we find ourselves in a situation where our income is becoming reduced or not what it was, then we have to begin to make some other serious decisions. Where am I living? I may have to relocate. If I am in a house that has a mortgage, and hopefully if I haven't refinanced, then maybe I can sell the house and downsize. That's what they call it, but the other term is called right size. So that you can find something that is within your budget, live within your means. Now, this opens up another can of worms, if you please, because it depends on where that other place is. Is it safe enough for you to relocate based on how much money is coming in? Because there are some places that, based on your budget, may not be safe for you to live. So you've got that challenge. But with God's help, as you have testified that He's helped you, had people come to you and offer to pay for your kids' education, because you're being faithful to God, His options will begin to come to light. And His options come out of left field. They come from places you have no idea, but it's because you're trusting Him. But if it means, because I've seen people, and I said this part of my testimony on here, is that sometimes we have things, and because we're so attached to those things, if we get rid of it or if we downsize, we're wondering what people will say. Didn't you have that nice house? And we do, and as Christians, we do this. Why do we do that? Man, you had a fine car. What happened to it? And you don't want to say, I couldn't afford it. Those are bad words for us, for people. But you just simply say, well, it was no longer in the budget, and I had to make some adjustments. That's okay because nobody is helping you with your budget. Now, if somebody was feeding you an extra $1,000 a month, maybe you could take some recommendations from them. But it's the money that God has placed in your care. So the hard decision is making the decision to relocate, sell the car if you no longer can afford the payment or the payment isn't, sell it, downsize, get a smaller car. You have to make these adjustments. And if you see it coming, don't wait until you're already in the mess. Just say, Lord, okay, I see this coming. Let me go ahead and make this adjustment now before it hits us square, and then we're really in debt or really in trouble. Okay? So those are the hard decisions that we have to make, and the only how we can do that is to make sure that we're in touch with the Master and ask him to help us when it comes to that. Retirement. This is the one that, there's no ifs, ands, and buts when it comes to putting money aside for retirement. You just have to do it. Period. And you have to act like it doesn't exist. Because when you get to that time and it's time to retire, Social Security is not going to be enough. Even your retirement may not be enough. Some people have, good retirement, or in my case, if something happens to me, my wife, she gets the retirement. And the reason that I did that is I was trying to plan in advance. When the retirement plan came up, I chose the one that if something happens to me, the checks go immediately to her. Why? Because spouses in ministry give up a lot at times. My wife gave up 2 full-ride scholarships because I was being called to the ministry. She got from Loma Linda, they flew her out there to look at the master's program when we were at Oakwood. And we were students, didn't have much money, and we just hated to be apart from each other. So they flew her out there, and because I wanted to be where she was, I got a bus ticket. Don't laugh. Tell me why you're laughing. I want to hear it. Tell me. I want you to tell me why you're laughing. And say what?
Wasn't meant for you to go out there.
54 hours. And you know where those buses stop? And the selections of food and restrooms. I vowed, and I didn't care how poor we were, I vowed after I made it to California, Lord, in your name, I will never, ever, if I can help it, never ride a bus again that far. I called a friend back in Huntsville. I said, please, buy me an airline ticket to get back home. And he loaned me the money, and I paid him back. But the bottom line is they flew her out there. They wanted her to go to their school. And because I was in school for ministry, graduating, waiting on a call, she turned it down. Now that, to me, was a huge sacrifice because she could have her doctorate by now. She wanted to go into food science. She's always creating things with food. That's her passion. And then the next thing, Ohio State was going to give her a full ride scholarship. And she turned that down. So I vowed that when we got to a certain place, or whatever she wants to do, she can do it. Because she sacrificed. And so when we moved to Maryland, I told her, I said, look, she didn't know, and see, my wife's a hard worker. I mean, when she jumps into something, she gives it her all. That's why I put on that thing the pastor read that, she's an innumerable aid to ministry. When we were in Birmingham, literally, if I had an assistant pastor, it was her. Because both of us were engaged in the success of that church. Well, we didn't, it's the Lord that gave it success, but I'm talking about us working together. And we were there for almost 6.5 years, and she didn't work. She was invested full time into working with the church. She was the youth director. She was this, that, and the other. She was put on this big, I don't know what it's called, wasn't a cantata, but she did it with all the kids. And it was the first time. She had about 50 kids up on the stage. She had rehearsed with them over time to sing this song. We had smoke machines coming up. They were wearing their thing, had angels, and it was called Angels Aware. That's what it was, called Angels Aware. And she just, and she did a puppet ministry there. The church grew. People were coming, I'm just saying, she did that. And so then when we got back to Huntsville and we moved out of Birmingham, Oakwood, the vice president, asked her to come and serve. Could she work for 1 month? Because his secretary was being taken by the president to work in his office. And so we knew Dr. Warren. And she said, sure, Dr. Warren, I'll do, because we were pretty good family, friends. And that 1 month turned into about 7 years. She ended up working for him, and then the president saw how efficient she was and took her to be his secretary, Dr. Delver Baker. And then from there, she went to HR and worked about 3.5 years there. And then she went to Title III, which is the funding, government funding for schools, and from there, grant writing in the same office. And when we moved here, she decided she wanted to do that, so she started her own business. And so my whole point is whatever she wants to do, because she sacrificed. And so I set up what happens, if anything happens to me, she's covered. If anything happens to me now, she gets my retirement, plus out of the monies that's for insurance, she can pay the balance of the house off. Because, like you said, when a spouse dies, that income is gone. And the wife is left behind with whatever. And so because of her sacrifice, I wanted to make sure she was covered if something happened to me. Now, when you retire, the insurance now is on you. You have to buy insurance. Life insurance is what I'm talking about. All of those things that a job provided that no longer are available, so you have to pay your own life insurance. You have to your health insurance and all of that. So that's why you got to make sure that you, and even with retirement, whatever that money is, if it means downsizing to make those ends meet, then that's the option, or an option, not the option, the only option, but that's an option, so that you can live within your means. Hope that helps. Yes. So open up a savings account in another bank. How did she do it? That's what people wanted to know. How did she do it? What was her secret? Mrs. McCarter acquired $150,000 by carefully saving from her earnings another point. Find another source of income if you can. People are going on YouTube, making all kinds of things, Facebook, all these, and they making things and they're gaining money from it. So find another source of income if possible to help boost the monies that are coming in, and then maybe you can stay wherever you are. But you got to have that income coming in. So from her earnings, made washing and ironing clothes over the span of 5 decades. So her simple secret to building wealth, a fortune, was compounding interest. That's your friend, not interest paid on credit cards. It's not the ones that make the big money, but the ones who know how to save who get ahead. You've got to, and this is the reason I use her example is because she's just a common worker, like you and me, you know. And so it can be done. But the ones who know how to save who get ahead. You've got to leave your investment alone long enough for it to what? Increase. And they named a building after her. Stephanie Bullock was the first student to receive aid for school. And as a matter of fact, it inspired others to give more than $380,000 to her scholarship fund. That was a ROI, or return on her money, 253%. So a simple secret, one way to invest is compounded interest. Live within your income. And so this lady, Michelle Singletary, she wrote a book on finances, and these are some of the tips. Evaluate your spending. Whether too much is spent on clothes that do not have any value to them. They look good on us, but they don't. Is your closet full? Do you have a storage facility full of stuff? If you're wearing it, it's not an asset. 4 types of net worth. This is not the thing. Are called appreciating assets. And these are the ones that you want to have. Liquid, which is cash, checking, savings, money market, certificates of deposit. Investment assets, stocks, bonds, money, mutual funds. Land and the real property, land and things that are attached to it. And when owning a home, and this is hard to do at times because of the financial crunch, sometimes we go through living life, but as much as possible, if you cannot refinance, because every time you do, it's like starting all over again, and you get a new amortization schedule. So, but as long as you can just keep that, you know, then you have equity in the house. And what the older generation did, especially those who own farms, if things got tight, they would sell, get the equity, buy a smaller property they could afford, and then roll on. That's how you benefit from real property, you know. There may be a time, but you got to think that refinance through very carefully, because it's going to put you right back smack in beginning all over again, and you never really get the benefit of the home ownership other than the taxes and all that kind of stuff like that. Some of them you can write off. So think that through. And even though this is considered an asset, it's considered a depreciating asset, personal property. The pastor was taking me back yesterday, and we saw one of these, didn't we, Elder? And the guy sped off right next to us. Man, that hurt my heart, because I'm a car guy. And he spit the rear wheels, which means it wasn't the front wheel drive. And that car slid sideways just a little. I said, oh, yes, do it. But anyway, automobiles, you know, all this stuff, they depreciate immediately after you take them out of the store, drive them off the lot, and it immediately loses value. Even a car like that, unless you keep it 30 years or 25 years. So are these my only assets? Stuff you got, stuff in your storage, stuff in your attic, and don't try to save things for your kids that are of no value, because they don't want it. You may have liked it. It was in style when you bought it, but they don't want it. I was in a situation like this, and there were a bunch of young people, and I asked them, I said, do you want your parents' stuff? No. Now, if it was money, cash money, they're going to want that. If it was gold bars, they're going to want that. Anything of monetary value, of course, they're going to want that, but old furniture and whatever, they're not going to want any of that stuff, you know. So, Ellen White says this: you ought to be careful that your expenses do not exceed your income. Bind about your wants. This applies to everything. wherever you go, whatever you do, we have to talk to ourselves and talk ourselves out of some things that we desire because we want it. But if it's not in the budget, or save up for it and pay cash, you can get a better deal that way. Rethink your grocery basket. Make a list. Don't go to the store when you're hungry. Don't go to the store when you're frustrated or mad. Don't go when you're in some kind of emotional whatever. You will spend more than you want. If you go when you're hungry, you'll be buying chips and everything else because you're hungry right then and you want something. As soon as you get in the car, you're busting the bag open. You know. Watch the kids. They will throw things, throw things in the cart, and you get up there, and boom, there you are. I'm going to send this as a PDF, so I'm not going to go into detail on every slide. Pay attention to the small stuff. Some people are nickel and diming themselves into debt. Stop eating out. If it's tight, then you may have to get on that debt snowball to get out of debt. And so everything that goes with that, like eating out and all these kind of things, you got to stop all that till you get out of debt. Then you can splurge a little, but not a lot. And then I'm not going to show the video, but just going to explain it. Oh, yeah, I had it muted. So it's simply, a lady was showing you the difference between making a burger at home and going out to Red Robin or something like that. Red Robin's over $10 for a burger, but she shows you how you can make one for $1 at home, even and use a veggie patty to do it. All right. Cut the dessert if you go, save on that. So get organized, spend less than you earn, save a little every pay period, and then avoid debt like COVID. Yeah, you don't want COVID. So, Counsels on Stewardship, page 257, be determined never to incur another debt. Deny yourself 1,000 things rather than run in debt. This has been the curse of your life, getting into debt. Is she trying to say something? Avoid it as you would the smallpox. Make a solemn covenant with God that by his blessing you will pay your debts, and then owe no man anything if you live on porridge and bread. So, here's one. When one becomes involved in debt, he is in one of Satan's nets, which he sets for souls. Deny yourself 1,000 things rather than run in debt. So we wonder why this whole thing of credit card debt and all that is so easy these days. Is because it has been set up, it's been designed that way. Make a covenant with God. This is how we get out of debt. Renew it every day. We talked about that last night. The basic premise for getting out of debt, number one, is make sure that either you start returning tithe and giving an offering, or you continue to do so, and then after that, everything else will fall in place. And then if you get to the end of your list and you can't pay something, then you need to make arrangements with that particular entity. Be faithful in tithe and offerings. Of course, we talked about that, so I can move on. And we're going to spend 5 minutes looking at this, and then we're going to end it because we have spent an hour, and I don't want to overburden you. So here's the robber story, Pastor. And there's a guy that's going to show up on the screen, and you might think he's my twin. So anyway, you know the text. It says, yet ye have robbed me, wherein in tithe and offerings, ye are what? Cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. And so let's, if you can turn the volume up some.
But I know what it means to be cursed with a curse. Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
See,
as a young man, I learned early. I learned as a child tithe and offering. The pastor taught us, and others, leaders in the church. But the pastor would take 10 apples, and he would say, look, now I want to illustrate something. I want to show you what 1/10 or what tithe means. Tithe means 1/10, or 1 out of 10. And so he said, I got 10 apples here, and I'm going to take one apple to represent God's tithe. And so he would take that out, and you see that? That's 1 out of 10. And he said, well, how many I got left? We said 9. He said, yeah. And so this belongs to the Lord. Then he would take another one out and say, this represents offering. And he said, look how many I got? We said 8. He said, isn't that a whole lot? We said, yeah. That was a little simple lesson to teach us 10 plus 10. And believe me, I started that. I mean, I bet you the treasurers climbed up the walls. They saw that little offering envelope come in with $1 tithe and $1 offering. But treasurers are very kind people, and they recognize, the heart of a child who wants to do what's right. But anyway, I learned, so this thing about curse of a curse, that's if you know better. God says, when you don't know better, I wink in your ignorance. And so years later, I started, I grew up teenager and started making more money and got bigger, and my tithe checks got larger. And then I was introduced into having a car and debt, and not knowing well, not being trained well. I came up in a home where money management wasn't the key, and so we lived from week to week. And that's the genre in which I came up in, but thank God I learned better but didn't know them. So bottom line is this. I got in trouble with some huge debt, and I had a car, and you know how it is when you're teenager, you're late teens, you're feeling good, and everybody think you're doing well and don't know you're struggling. And so I started dipping into the tithe to pay the car note. Because I had overspent myself, didn't manage well. And so I got to the place where they were, sending the letters, and, eventually, you know what that means, they come in to get the car. And so think about it now. Here I am, got this nice car, and, self gets involved in how we look with things. And so, just think, if I didn't have the car, what would people say? What would people think? We get into these things. People have houses and they're sinking, and it's obvious that we just need to downsize. Well, that's become a negative term. It's called right size today. So yes, okay, fine. If that's what it's called, right size, sell that house and move into something that's more of your budget. But a lot of people say, well, if I move, they're going to say, what's wrong? Didn't y'all have that fine house? Or what happened to that real nice car you had? Sometimes we do this to people. And so the bottom line is it came down to a decision between how I looked and serving the Lord. And so this thing was hitting me. It was eating me up. The Lord was talking to me, hey, when are you going to stop this? When are you going to honor me with the tithe? You're stealing from me, And so, I really, I thank God for the Holy Spirit who gives you second chances. God is a God of first, second, third, and fourth, and fifth challenges. Challenges that we have, but he will give you the opportunity to make it right, even after the ninth. But thank God I wrapped my arms around him, asked him to forgive me, and let me tell you what he did. I said, forget it. I don't care how I look. I don't care what people say. They can have the car. I want to be saved. And so at that moment, I started back returning tithe. I was cursed with a curse. All the funds I had seemed to be going through the back door. Everything was just going everywhere. And I just said, forget it. Lord, I got it right. Started returning tithe, giving offering. And when I communicated with the company about giving the car up, they made a deal with me. They said, we prefer you keep the car. So can you work this out? Can you do this payment? And I said, well, yeah, this is what I have left in my budget. And do you know that car, I kept that car for 10 long years, put 100,000 miles on that car. When you do what God asks you to do, he will bless you. He will open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing that we don't have room enough. Isn't it? Yep. And all that squared away before I got married because there's the car. Had it all squared away before I went down the aisle. Isn't that a nice?
That guy there has hair. I spent all day waxing that car on the Sunday morning when we were supposed to get married to my wife. We got married at the Canal Boulevard SDA Church in Charleston, West Virginia. That's another testimony how my wife and I met, how she became Adventist, coming from the Pentecostal church, a church where T.D. Jakes was the pastor, and she talked to him about the Sabbath when she got to that point. Because when the Lord pointed her out and said, "That's the one," I said, "How? She's not a 7 days in advance." And he said, "You do what you know to do is right." So that meant we could be friends, and that was as far as it could go. And so I really don't have time to go into the whole story, but bottom line is there were others in that town. The lady we helped move to Charleston, West Virginia, she was the former clerk of our church in Cleveland. She relocated because of her parents getting older to Charleston, West Virginia, and so she started working on her. And then not only that, but a prophecy seminar popped up. And so she was invited to go there. So the Lord had it all in the plan. And when the Sabbath was presented, she accepted the Sabbath, but first she researched it. And she didn't research it I was sending her the amazing facts once every week or so. And she would answer them, send the stuff back, and I wouldn't say you're wrong. I just said, well, here's the answer, highlighted it and sent it back. But when it got to the Sabbath, she wanted to look at material that wasn't by us to research the Sabbath. She went to the library, she did all the research, she found out that the seventh day is the true Sabbath. Then she went to her pastor, who I didn't know at that time was T.D. Jakes, because she always talked about a Sister Jackson who lived in Whitman, where she was from. And so I thought that was the lady who she talked to. But she said I didn't know this until after I didn't know it was T.D. Jakes until 2004 or 5, and we've been married since 1983. In my mind, I'm always thinking she was talking about the lady who was the pastor in her town. And but she went to him and she asked him about the Sabbath, and he gave the general answers. We'll lose our members, and all the answers they give. And she said, well, if this church can't follow the Bible, then I can't be here. And that was it. And she accepted the Sabbath, and then in April of 20? Yeah, it was April of 82, I think it was. She got baptized. I drove there for the baptism. Bought the engagement watch, because that's what we used in those days. And went out to a real nice restaurant and proposed. Why wait? God said she's the one. She'd accepted the Sabbath. She'd been baptized. She went through all the, and that's how that happened. There the car is in 1988, me following the call to ministry. It snowed in Huntsville, by the way. And there it is. Kept it, like I said, about 10 years, put over 100,000 miles on it. You're cursed when you know better, because God has already said. He's in relationship with us. And so when we go awry, he comes after us. That's only natural. Hey, you and I are in this thing together. Why are you going off track? He's going to come. And so he did. And I didn't have a good excuse other than I needed to maintain my self-image and rob from you. And literally, do you know, I used to say, Lord, will you keep me alive another week so I can pay you back? And every week it got worse. Keep me alive the next week, Lord, and I'll pay you back. It got worse until I owned up to the fact that, look, this ain't going to get right until I get it right. And so that's what the curse is. See, God, this should not be considered a scare tactic to scare us to do what's right. It's the same way with accepting Christ. It shouldn't be in a way that we are scared into salvation.
There was a time when, fire and brimstone sermons and, oh, Lord, I don't want to burn. So, yes, let me join the church. That's fire escape religion. I want to escape the fire. So, that's the only option for a 12-year-old who's scared to burn in hell. And what the Lord got me, but he let me learn that it's because I love him or my love for him that this is a decision that I'm making. And so it's the same thing here. This is not to scare us into submission. This is to remind us that after we have made a decision that some preachers call him the hound of heaven. And that's in a loving way. He's going to come after us in a loving way to say, hey, let us reason together. Yeah, he's not waiting to throw us in hell's fire. All right, I'm going to stop here because we've passed an hour. And I can see by your eyelids that some of the ice cream that we ate is settling around here. As I said, I'm going to create a PDF out of this so that the pastor can get it to you. You can ask him for it. And everything else will be on there. Even the ending, I at least need to show you that part. Just some of the resources that we have available on our website. And the rest of the 7 steps, there's some stuff on there about investment too. Simple stuff. Oh, come on. Yeah, that's our website, and there's some tabs up at the top there. I left the clicker down here. Oh, yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, this is our YouTube page. You can see we got video on credit cards, debt and management, car debt, how to buy a car, kids and money, charitable giving, and then, of course, even the older stuff from Ed Reed is still on there that goes in line with faith and finance. And then, of course, we're on Instagram and Twitter, and we're on Facebook. Stewardship Jack is children, teaching stewardship principles to children ages 3 to 7, I think, 3 to 6. Let me just want to speed through some of this. If you want to be certified in stewardship, you can go to ACL, Adventist Learning Community, and do the certification. We have a movie. It has 4.6 million views on YouTube. Encourage TV. The guy who wrote this, which is Rich Aguilera and John Matthews, they came together. It's a 90-minute film, children's movie. But Aguilera made a deal with Encourage TV, and they took it up, and because they promoted it, that's how many views it has now. And it keeps growing. There's a children's book called Dollars and Cents. That's available on the Adventist Books ABC, the Adventist ABC. And then this is a 8-part miniseries called Smoky Mountain Rescue. It was an award-winning series. And this is for kids, too. Each part is about 5 to 7 minutes, and there are 8 parts. And the young man at Southern is the one who produced this for us. Of course, his name is Nathan DeWild, and he won a Telly Award in 2020. There's a stewardship resource catalog you can get for free. This is some of the stuff on Advent Source. And this is a PDF that I'm sending your pastor. And everything on here is clickable. And it'll take you to the
whether to take you to Advent Source where you can get it, or it will take you to our website or whatever. But these are resources that we have for stewardship. And of course, the GC has resources on their website as well. This is Faith and Finance. This is an old series. It's 12 parts. And the reason I labeled this was supposed to be Faith and Finance is because we have made this available for free on our website. You can download the manual for the presenter and then the manual for the student. And it's all free. You just print them off, and you can hold a 12-part series in your church. And you can do it maybe on a Wednesday night, or you can do it on a Sunday morning, or whenever. But this is the series that Ed Reed produced. Until in a couple of years, we hope to have revamped this to where it's more up to date, but it's still usable now, and it's for free. Best price in the world. So that's available. And then this is the pastor I was telling you about. His name is Pastor Troy Levy. He's pastors the Gaithersburg Church in Maryland. Church is about an hour and 15, 20 minutes from my house. I was able to preach at his church as well, but he developed his own financial money management plan. You probably could look that up online as well. His series is comparable to Ramsey. And of course, you have Total Money Makeover, you have Financial Peace there. And then if you really want to have fun with your kids or grandkids, get this game, Act Your Wage. First one out of debt wins. Okay, yeah, learn how to manage the money God allows you to make now, and you can become wealthy in Jesus. And by the way, it's okay. Live like no one else. In other words, when it comes to the debt snowball, and I wish I had time to do that because I have an example on here. But when you start lining up your debts from smallest to large, and the reason you do that is so that the smallest one gets paid off sooner, you get excited. You say, wow, I knocked that out. You don't, once you start the debt snowball, you don't get any more new debt. You put a kibosh on that. You just stop until you put $1,000 in an account for emergency fund. And if emergency happens during this process, then you take care of it. And then before you get back to the snowball, put the rest of whatever it is to get the $1,000 back, and then you continue with the snowball. But it means you have to be diligent and stay on track. And you can, so what this means is, at that point, live like no one else. He says, just eat rice and beans, or rice and peas, whatever. Ellen White says, if you have to live on porridge, get out of debt. Credit card debt, please. Take care, protect yourself against the least bit of greed. Life is not defined by what you have, even when you have a lot. It's okay to have a lot. Abraham had a lot. Job had a lot. These people had a lot, which means it's okay. And then there are some who had nothing, but because they trusted the Lord, they made it. So it doesn't matter what economic scale you're on, with Jesus, you can make it. And with simple, basic principles on how to manage money, you can do well. That's it. Well, where that's headed, we can pray. Pastor, do you want to close out and pray, or do you have anything? Okay, all right, Father, we're thankful for the people who have stayed by. We hope that we've shared something that will be of benefit. You are the great financier, and for those who have personal finances and have questions, I yielded them to go to a financial money management, somebody who is certified, somebody who has the credentials and the licenses that go along with that. We pray that from this day forward, we would be in your hands and in your care. As you have taken care of us in the past, we look forward to you continuing to do so. Bless us as we depart from here. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Let's give Pastor Harpe a big thank you for coming here this weekend.
Mm-hmm.